Guten Abend, mein Name ist Heidenstein. Was ist los? Du bist am
Hello everyone, it's Hyde in the Philippines. Today I want to talk about addiction in the Philippines. Now, before you get here, you need to get a handle on your addictions before you even set one foot into the Philippines. Because the Philippines is an inexpensive place of abundance. Now, the financial restrictions that might assist in your sobriety or nullify your addictions back home, they just don't come into play here. Most things are financially within your grasp. You can afford most of your addictions, like I said, in abundance. Now, I can't speak to your addictions. All I can do is speak to mine. And I'm going to elaborate, and I'm going to do it now. My first and foremost addiction that I had the biggest battle with was nicotine. I smoked cigarettes forever. I started smoking cigarettes when I was about 16 or 17. And by the time I was 18, it was an everyday part of my life. I wouldn't buy a shirt without a pocket here so I could put my cigarettes in. Everything I did, you know, we all smoked. It was the 80s, and I was 70s, 80s, and we were always smoking. Everybody smoked. All your heroes on the silver screen, they all smoked. John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, everybody smoked cigarettes and drank alcohol. So it was just one of those things. If you were a man, you smoked cigarettes. And I wanted to be a man just like any other young and up and coming guy. So I smoked, and like I said, it became an everyday part of my life. Now, currently, I don't smoke, and I quit 6 years ago. This April 1st will be seven years. April Fool's Day will make 7 years that I quit smoking. Now, one of the main reasons I quit smoking was mainly financial. It was $7 a pack when I quit smoking. I was smoking 2+ packs a day, but just to make the math simple, you know, at that was $14 a day. Every 10 days it was $140. Every month that was $420 that was just going up in smoke. And that just seemed ludicrous to me, just to be wasting that kind of money. Now, one of the other reasons I quit smoking was I used to be a truck driver. And as a truck driver, you know, you smoke all the time, and you have to go in for a DOT physical. Every year I had to go in and get a physical to make sure that I was capable of driving a truck. So I went in for my annual physical, and, you know, I'm getting checked out. And the guy gets to my back, and he puts a stethoscope on my back, and he goes, breathe in, I breathe in. And then he moves it down lower on my back, and he goes, breathe in, I breathe in. And he's like, do it again. I did it again. He's like, hey man, do you smoke cigarettes? And I was like, yeah, I smoke. He goes, well, hey man, I hate to break this to you, but if you don't quit smoking, you know, I was just listening to your bottom lung. There's barely any air making it to your bottom lung. And if you don't quit smoking soon, you're going to lose all function of your bottom lung, and then you're going to have a hard time breathing. And that sort of hit me like a ton of bricks. You know, here I was going to lose half of my breathing capabilities, and it stunned me. You know, it was one of those things where you're like, you get hit with a dose of reality that pertains directly to you and your health and your longevity. And I didn't want to die, and I didn't want to live that kind of life to where I couldn't breathe, because I've got a very close friend of mine. His name is Fred, and he's currently got that COPD, and he can't go more than 10 feet without having to sit down because he's out of breath. I just didn't want that to happen to myself. So that year I diligently worked at not smoking anymore. And it was hard. You know, I'd go 2 weeks, and then I'd go back. I'd go 6 weeks, I'd go back. 2 months, I'd go back. You know, and through that year of constantly trying, eventually it stuck. I finally managed to quit smoking cigarettes. And like I said, coming up April 1st, April Fool's Day, I'll have 7 years going in. Now here in the Philippines, cigarettes are cheap. You know, they don't cost what they cost back home. The name brand cigarettes here are about $2.50 a pack, $2 a pack. And if you want to smoke Philippine cigarettes, they're even cheaper than that. So you can totally afford to smoke here if that's what you want to do. But just like at home, it's bad for you. You know, you will lose lung function, and eventually you'll catch lung cancer, emphysema, COPD. It'll be something. Now that brings me into my second addiction, a problem I've had to battle with, and which was alcohol. Now a lot of the guys I meet here that I talk to that are successful have demons themselves, and almost every one of them has a problem with alcohol or had a problem with alcohol. I myself am no exception. You know, I was born in '65, so I came up in the '70s, '80s, and when you're a little kid back then, you know, they'd give you a little sip of beer, a little drink of the cocktail, and it was cute, you know, to watch the babies or the little kids make faces when they drank beers or had a little sip of something that they shouldn't have. And then on, you know, like New Year's, everybody get a little shot of champagne. Depending on what kind of household you lived in, you might get some wine here and there. Alcohol was just part of the culture. And for me, one of my first experiences with alcohol that I can remember vividly is I had 4 Stroh's beers and I got falling down drunk. I drank 4 beers. I had to choke them down. I remember it wasn't a pleasant experience, but I wanted to be like the big boys, and I drank them 4 beers, and by the time they kicked in, I couldn't control my motor functions. I couldn't stand up straight. I kept falling down, and it took a while before I was able to get back up and get to where I could make myself and get my way back home. Now, nobody knew about it. It was something I sort of did in secret with a couple of buddies of mine, but I made it back home, and nobody was the wiser. Well, that was in the 6th grade. Now, over the course of time, you know, in the '70s and '80s, a big thing back then was keg parties. We had them all the time. A keg of beer might, depending on what you bought, was $15 to $20. You know, and you could get somebody, one of the older boys would go buy a keg of beer, and we'd have parties, and we did it all the time. You know, a couple kegs, 5 kegs, 10 kegs. You know, we'd go out to the beach, and every weekend there'd be some kind of keg party going on. And it was just part of the lifestyle. You know, by the time you're 16, 17, you know, you've been drunk numerous times, and the adults back then really didn't didn't pay that much of attention to it because legal drinking age was 18. And like I said, alcohol was part of the culture back in the '70s and '80s. Every movie you watched, all your heroes were smoking cigarettes and drinking. I can't count how many scenes, if you would go back in time, of people just standing there drinking alcohol. So it was part of the culture. And then I moved on into my adult years and got out there and was able to go to the bars and do all these things. Well, for me, I became a binge drinker. You know, if I'm going to drink, if I'm going to have one, I'm going to have 100. I'm going to drink until I'm done drinking. Now, I didn't drink every day. Normally, I would drink just on Fridays. I'd work all week. And I always worked really hard jobs, dangerous jobs, because that's what paid the bills, and they were always risky. People got hurt all the time, and it was just a matter of time till you got hurt. So I would justify, you know, drown my woes or my worries and just get drunk. Now I'd get off work on Friday, and I would sit in the bar till I was drunk. Now back then, a long neck bottle of beer was 75 cents, and with the tip, that was $1. So for about $20. You could get annihilated. 20 beers, you know, you could drink. You could even buy a couple of beers if you wanted to. That was up to you. But one of the flaws in all that was, for me personally, when I was drinking, I'm a loud and obnoxious drunk. I'm a joker. I like to have fun. like to make people laugh. Now, some of the jokes and stuff I did just didn't hit with some people, and they didn't like it. Okay, well, I 100% didn't care. I did not care if you didn't like me or didn't like what I was doing. If you tried to ruin my good time, if you tried to stop me from drinking or told me I had to leave or you didn't like something I said, I would punch you in the mouth immediately. I didn't talk no shit about it. You know, and this ain't a brag on my part. I'm not bragging at all. It's a flaw in my character. If you were talking shit to me and I didn't like it, I would just immediately punch you as hard as I could in the mouth to shut you up, because I didn't want you ruining my good time. Now, over the course of the years, you know, that that becomes a problem. People get to know you, they get to, and they get to dislike you, or they like you or don't like you. But I remember numerous times going into public places, and I would hear whispers as soon as I'd walk in the door. Oh shit, here comes trouble. And they were right. I was trouble. You know, I didn't take no shit from anybody. I didn't care. You know, I was there to have a good time. Don't you try and ruin it. Now, one of the things that in the course of me getting out there at a party, I had a guy almost kill me once in a bar because he knew of my reputation. I was in that bar and somebody had fucking cocked off to me and said or did something I didn't like, and I punched that motherfucker right in the eye. Bam! I blacked his eye right now. He was done. Now, his buddy didn't like what I had did, and he picked up a long neck beer bottle and he smashed me right across my jaw, right here, just bam. Now, when he did that, I put my hand up to my face, and that bottle had broken, and the jagged edges of it had cut me jaggedly across here. And when I put my hand up to my face, my fingers went inside my cheek, and I could touch my tongue. Now, at that point, I knew, you know, I needed medical attention. Even as drunk as I was, I knew I needed medical attention. So where we were at was quite a distance from the hospital, so it was just as easy to get in the car and drive to the hospital as call the ambulance and then have them take me. So we drove there, and I'm holding my face together like this, bleeding. But when it was all said and done, I had blood to my socks. You know, my white socks were red. Now, as we're driving, I kept picking little pieces of glass out of my face. I had little pieces of glass in my neck I could feel. Well, when I got to the hospital, you know, they stitched me up. I ended up with 150 stitches in my face. And one of the worst parts was I had a piece of glass in that big vein right here. Big artery, whatever it is, right here. And the surgeon, luckily for me, there was a plastic surgeon on duty on call that night. So I was lucky in that aspect. I don't have a big, ugly Frankenstein scar. But he's like, he saw that and he was like, oh my God. You know, and he plucked that out and stitched it up real quick, did what he had to do. And I mean, blood was just hosing out the side here. And he got it to stop. He stitched me up and he's like, man, if you'd have pulled out that piece of glass, you'd have bled to death. You'd have never made it to the hospital. You wouldn't have been able to pinch it together and you would have died. Now, the reason I say that kind of stuff is beer here in the Philippines is super cheap, man. It is 100% cheap. Normally, you get liter bottles. People buy liter bottles, and they're like $2.50. You can get a case of beer. I think it's 9 bottles, 9 liters in a case, and it's 600 pesos, so like around 10 bucks. You know, you go to a bar here, and it's like $1.50 for a small beer. So if you get drunk here and you're one of them guys that make bad decisions or you black out, this is not the place for you, man, because it's all going to end badly. The ambulances here don't show up for a long time, and if you're really effed up, they got to take you to the mainland. I'm living on an island here, so to get to a main hospital, you got to get on a ferry, and that ferry takes an hour to get over to the mainland, and then God knows how long from the mainland once you get off the ferry to a proper good hospital. So if you got a problem with alcohol and you black out, you're a blackout drunk, and this is going to be a problem for you here. You're going to become isolated, and it's an addiction that, like I said, you need to kick that before you even get over here. Now, how I ended up quitting alcohol ties right in with the cigarettes. I quit smoking, and I was so worried that I was going to get drunk some night and get blackout drunk, and I was going to wake up with a pack of cigarettes in my pocket. And I fought so hard to give up them cigarettes after all them years that I couldn't jeopardize it anymore. So I quit drinking. I just quit drinking. And I got to tell you, man, it's changed my life in positive ways. I haven't woke up in the morning sick with my head pounding, dry heaving. I haven't had to, picked up my phone and looked at all the texts and voicemails like, oh man, you ain't gonna believe what you did last night. Because I could believe what I did, but the shame that comes with that, the full-on shame of your bad behavior, and everybody remembers it, but you don't remember it. You weren't there. You just weren't there. Blackout you was moving around doing stupid shit, and you have no recollection of it, but everybody else remembers. So it's been, I'd say, 6 years that I've given up. I haven't been drunk in 6 years. I've had a couple beers here and there, I'm not gonna lie, I've had a couple beers here and here, especially here in the Philippines. I tried a couple of the, like San Mig Light is 3.5%, so it's like a baby beer, you know, it's more like a pop than anything. But one of the drawbacks about for me getting older in beer is if I drink 1 or 2 beers, I'm gonna be up all night pissing. I can't sleep because I gotta piss every hour. I gotta get up to piss. Okay, that brings me on to my third addiction. You know, and it's for some of you guys, it's the same thing. I love food. I love food. And food here is just in abundance. It's everywhere. I'm going to give you some examples. I love shrimp, and you can go to the wet market any given day and go get your shrimp this big. They're big, man, big. And it's like $8 for a kilo, which is 2.2 pounds. Once you peel the heads off and get the shell off, you're about a pound and a half of shrimp. And between two people, it's just me and Gladys. I end up eating most of them shrimp because they're so good. They taste so good. And tuna here. You can get a tuna this big around, $10. You know, and when you get that much tuna and you put it on the grill, you're gonna eat, man. There's so much of it, and there's just two of us, so I end up eating till I'm overfull. You know, just eating more than I should. I'm full, but I'm just gonna keep putting it in the hole. Now, everywhere you go here in the Philippines, there's food. This is a food nation. They love food. You'll drive down the road and you can smell barbecue everywhere. You can see it everywhere. There's people cooking all kinds of stuff on little pop-up grills everywhere that they're selling, and it's 20, 30, 40 pesos for whatever you can imagine on a stick, cooked on a coal. I mean, and good. You know, you pull up and you get 3 of these sticks. They're just snacks, but boom, boom, you eat these things. Rotisserie chickens cooked on a bed of coals. You know, they got them, they're like $4.50. They got this other thing, it's called liempo, and it's basically a pork steak about this long, about this thick, and it's on a rotisserie, and it's delicious, man. And it's like $3-4, man. Any restaurant you go, the other day I took Gladys and a couple friends to a restaurant, and I fed all of us for $10. We all had sizzling pork chops, breaded pork chops this big around, unlimited rice, unlimited gravy, with drinks. It was $10. That was for 4 people. Now, if you're just one guy and you're an eater, and so I forget to mention the bakeries. You'll be driving down the road and you can just smell fresh baked bread. And if that's one of your things that you love that, it's hard, man, because you can get a bag of bread for like $2. I mean, every little biscuit or confectionery little item, sweet thing, $2 for like 20 of them. It's so cheap. If you go to any restaurant, I'm just saying any restaurant, you will get the most obnoxious amount of food for the least amount of prices. So like back home, a $50 meal here is going to be $3, $4, $5. You know, so if you're an overindulger, which I am. Last time I was here, I weighed 157 pounds. When I got home, back to Ohio, and I stepped on the scale, I weighed 191 pounds. I gained 34 pounds in 4 months. And it was just from eating food, no drinks, just eating. I just couldn't stop myself. I mean, I knew I was going to go home and I knew I was going to correct my eating behavior. But if you're one of them big old dudes, one of them obese eaters, they say morbidly obese, or if you're even me, you know, I know that I eat too much when I get here. I know it. It's a behavior when I fully retire here, it's something I'm going to have to put in check. I'm going to have to definitely get an exercise regime, or I'm just going to blow up and be a load. Now, one of the last things I want to talk about, and you know, some of the guys I talk to, one of the other addictions that people have is a sex addiction. If you've got a sex addiction, yes, you're going to live out your wildest dreams here. One of my first memories is when I got here. I was in Lapu-Lapu. I needed to go down the road. It was about 1.25 miles, and I didn't want to walk. So I, hailed a truck driver. He pulled over, and for like 50 cents, he took me the 1.5 miles. And as soon as I got in, he was like, "Hey man, what are you here?" I was like, "I'm just vacationing." And he's like, "Do you want to go shoot some guns? I have machine guns." And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And he goes, "Well, do you want to go to a house of ill repute? I know a place right now. There's 20 girls waiting just to meet a guy just like you." And I was like, no, hey man, thank you very much, but no. Now, if that's what you're into, you can make that happen. A lot of guys fly straight here and go straight to Angeles City and go to Walking Street. It's, you know, it's full of bars and women of ill repute looking to make a dollar. And I can't fault them for that. However, you know, it's about, from what I understand, it's about 1,000 pesos to get one of these girls back to your room. Now, you can do that. You can live that party lifestyle, drinking and fornicating. That's up to you if you want to live that way, but that has its drawbacks in its own self. You might catch a disease, or you might catch a charge, because you can watch some of these videos where some of these guys end up with an underage girl, and it's all part of a setup. You know, they knew, the girl knew when she went in, and it's a setup. Your door gets kicked in, the police kick in your door, and next thing you know, you're getting hauled off. And to get out of it, you got to give up every dollar you have, and they might take you to the ATM machine to get you to draw up out of that as well. You don't know. Or they might take you to the police station and really drain your ass, and then take you to the airport where you get deported and you get blackballed, never to be able to return to the Philippines again. Now, that's up to you. If you want to let your penis dictate your life and cause you all kinds of financial problems or physical health problems, because some of these diseases you can't get a shot for and you can't wash off. Now, one of the other things I want to talk about, and it's not a problem for me, is drug addiction. If you've got a drug problem, don't come here. Just don't. Drugs here, you could get a life sentence. You know, if they catch you with any amount of drugs, you might could get your way out of it, pay your way out of it, maybe. But there's horror stories of foreigners that are sitting in prison here for life over the smallest amount of drugs, and they're not playing. They might want to make an example out of you. One of the biggest problems here that the locals have is this thing called shabu, which is basically meth. It's meth. And if you get caught up in that, and like I said, if they catch you with any amount of drugs here, depending on who jams you up, you're screwed. You might never get out of Philippine prison. And most of you guys are 50 years and older. How well do you think you're going to do in a Southeast Asian prison? It's going to age you in such a way so fast. Months will make you look like you've spent years. So if you have a drug addiction, you have to get that under control. And if you haven't got it under control, do not come to Southeast Asia. So like I said, before you get to the Philippines, you need to get a handle on your addictions. I don't know what your addictions are, but you need to get a handle on it. All right, this has been Hiding in the Philippines. Be as good as you can.